Hi everyone, welcome to this online class where I'm going to be making this gorgeous layout inspired by these beautiful Bo Bunny Gabrielle papers. I'm using two of the papers from the collection, this one which is called Flight with the gorgeous butterflies and this one that's got the dots on the back, Gabrielle Dot. I'm definitely going to be using these butterflies on the front of my layout, and then I'm going to use the cream back of the Gabrielle Dot to form a frame. I've got two photographs of my mum when she was 7 years old, taken in 1945, and I've taken a photocopy and I'm going to keep the original safe. So my photocopy, just so you've got a rough idea of measurements, is 5¼ by 7¼ inches, and this is definitely a vintage inspired layout, so I'll be doing a lot of distressing of the edges of my papers and of my photograph. So I like to do it with my scissors. I know that there are tools out there to do the distressing with, but as long as you support your paper and you've got quite a rough edge to the back of your scissors, it works quite well, particularly if you don't want to go too wild with the distressing. So I've trimmed the Gabrielle Dot paper down to a square of roughly 12 inches, depending on how neat you are at taking that paper strip off, and I want to trim the Flight paper so that I get a nice margin all the way around. So I'm trimming it to an 11½ inch square. Just make sure that you trim it off the two sides that don't have the butterfly image. And then it's time to get those scissors out again, or your distressing tool if you have one, and just distress the edges of both pieces of paper. Once you've cleared all that paper dust away, you're ready to begin cutting out around each of those beautiful butterflies. Now take your time doing this, and the trick is to leave the bodies joined in the middle of the paper, but to carefully cut out each of the butterfly wings. If you've got a beautiful paper like this that has a particular image on it that you don't want to hide with your photographs, whilst I am using this to actually lift the butterfly wings off the page, you could cut in to that image so that you can tuck your photograph in behind. And that way, once you've got your photograph in place, you don't have to lose that beautiful image that might be on the paper that you're using. On the coordinating 12 by 12 sticker sheet that comes with this collection, I'm just using one of the gorgeous borders down the edge of the layout. I'm going to frame my photograph in this muted brown cardstock, and I'm cutting it to measure 7½ by 5½, so it'll be a really fine border around my photograph. And then a little bit more distressing, and then I'm going to attach my photograph to the frame with double-sided tape. Next I'm going to show you how to create those little corseted sections, and they're great for revealing some of that lovely paper that you might have framing your layout. So you're going to cut into your layout, and I'm cutting in roughly about 3 inches on this bottom left-hand corner, and then you're going to distress the edges of each of those cuts, about 2¾ inches on the top left, and then about 2½ inches on the right. There's no real exact measurement to this, it's just where you feel you want to stop. And I really didn't want to cut into that butterfly, so I was a little bit shorter on this one on the right hand edge. And then you're going to carefully roll back either side of the cuts that you've made in the paper into a V shape, and again just take your scissors and distress the little paper curl that you create. Once you've curled all 3 sections, you're ready to put in the brads that will create little hooks that you can lace up to make this corseted look. I'm using these small pearl brads, and I like to start by drawing a pencil line as a guide and marking out the position of my brads. So roughly about ½ inch away from the V shape that you've made, and then I'm spacing my brads every 1 inch. And just make sure that you start in the same place when you're placing your brads so that they are opposite each other on either side of the V shape. And then you're going to pierce holes at each of the positions you've marked. I'm using a matte pin and a piece of foam, but you could equally use a piercing tool. And you really do need to rub out your pencil marks at this point, because I forgot and I merrily went adding my little pearl brads into the holes that I'd pierced, and then I had a little bit of a tricky time erasing around those little brads, as you will see in just a moment. I've had these little pearl brads quite a long time. I can't remember where I got them from. There we go. I've worked it out. Worked out it's going to be a little bit more tricky to do it after the brads are inserted. And we're going to repeat that process for the other two little corseted sections. The longest of my corseted sections took 8 brads, and the other two took 6 brads in total. And then you want to add all the double-sided tape to the back of your layout. And you need to be a little bit careful about where you put your tape here, because you want to support those little cut-out sections. You want to be careful not to stick down your butterfly wings. I've added a little bit of tape across the bodies because I do want those to be supported by the paper that is underneath and either side of the wings that I've cut out. And that will just help the paper to stay flat. So I've got quite a few little sections of tape backing to remove here, but I think it's better to do it this way because you know that all that work that you've done cutting out will actually be supported by that page that's going to frame your layout. I'm not going to stick those two pieces together just yet, but I'm going to work on the lacy frame around the photograph. So add double-sided tape all the way around the edge of your photograph, and I'm using a strong double-sided tape. My lace was a little bit wide, so I'm just trimming it down to roughly ½ inch wide. And then you're going to position the lace onto the double-sided tape, and you just want to create little gathers as you attach the lace to the edge of the frame. You need a few more gathers as you go around the corner and continue working your way all the way around the frame. You just have a very slight overlap as you finish your lace frame and then trim the excess away. And this helps hold the lace in place and is going to be what attaches your photograph to your frame. So I'm running a piece of double-sided tape all the way around that frilled edge, exactly on top of the double-sided tape that we initially used to attach the lace to the frame. That's nice and secure and looking very pretty. Now, because I want to use this photograph as a pocket, I need to make sure that the edge of the lace isn't going to catch on any tag that goes in and out of the pocket. So I'm just removing the tape from the left hand of the picture as you look at it on the page, or what will be the left hand edge when you turn it up the other way around. And I've cut a piece of cardstock that measures 7.5 inches by roughly 1.5 to 2 inches, and that just covers the edge of the lace and would stop anything that I tuck underneath from catching on that lace. Now I'm happy that I'm not going to need to do any more work between the two layers of the paper. I'm going to stick the top piece of scrapbooking paper to its framing piece below. Just make sure that you don't miss any of the double-sided tape as you put the two layers together. Now again we're going to be working on the back of the photograph, and we're just extending the two top and bottom strips of double-sided tape to make sure that our pocket is nice and secure to our layouts, and removing the backing tape and just tucking it under that bottom butterfly's wings. Next I'm just going to cut little strips of lace slightly wider than my V at the bottom of each of my corseted sections, and I'm just with a little bit of double-sided tape attaching them underneath as if they're poking up through the bottom of each of those little inserts. I'm framing one of the little cardstock tag stickers, and again roughing the edges, so in the same brown cardstock as I've framed my photograph. And then I'm going to use another piece of that cardstock to make a little pocket tag to house the original photograph of my mum, and later on I'll tuck a little bit of journaling about my mum in there too. So here's the measurements. Cut a piece of brown cardstock that measures 8 3/4 in length by 3.5 wide, and then you're going to fold it to create the pocket 3.5 inches. And I'm going to use another little sticker from the sticker sheet to create a pretty topper for my tag. Now I cut this as I went, so I've given you the final measurements so you won't have to cut that little top section off if you follow those measurements. I used a 1.5 inch circle punch to create the little indent at the top so I can get hold of the photograph, and then I'm drawing a 3/8 of an inch border down the back section, oh, get those stickers off there, of my tag, and I'm removing both sides, and that creates little tabs that you need to join that pocket section together. I've just round the corners of the top of the tag, and then you fold the tabs to the inside, add a little bit of glue, and then you can join the pocket to the front of the tag. The perfect place to keep your photograph and journaling safe. Again, another little sticker that I've framed in the brown, distress the edges and attach that. I am using glue to attach this rather than a foam pad because I want it to slide easily in and out of its little home inside the photograph. I'm using a mint green satin ribbon and just looping it through the top of my tag and trimming the edges or the ends into a point to stop them fraying. I'm tying a cream satin bow in the top of the little tag. Now I'm ready to stick down my title. I've kept it nice and simple, Nora after my mum, and I've used the upright font from the Opposites Attract Cricut cartridge. I'm going to use this for a little bit of journaling about my mum. I'm just attaching it with another of those little pearl brads. Be careful not to poke your fingers. Protect your layout with a bit of scrap paper, and then I'm using some matte multi-medium to coat the wings of the butterflies and to add the tiniest sprinkling of glitter, a really delicate amount of glitter just to add a little bit of sparkle. By coating the butterfly wings in this way, it just gives them a little bit of extra body, so that works out quite well when you've got them cut out in this way. So you may be wondering why I haven't showed you how to lace up these little corsets, and it's because once I had a look at my layout with the original thread that I used, as you can see at the top of this picture, a fluffy thread, it was a little bit too chunky and I didn't like it, so I'm going to take it off and I'm exchanging it for a fine cotton, natural cotton thread, and I think it looks much nicer on the little corseted section. It doesn't cover them up quite so much. So off with the old fluffy thread and on with the nice thin natural cotton. So lacing it up just like you do your boots, and then tying a knot and just trimming the edges. I'm really pleased with how this has turned out, so don't forget, if you've got a paper that's got a gorgeous design on it like this Flight by Bo Bunny from their Gabrielle collection, then you can cut into the design so that you can tuck your photographs in behind and you don't need to lose any of that beautiful design. I've got a little tag still to do some journaling on, and I'm really happy with these pretty corseted sections that show that lovely paper underneath. I'm definitely going to frame this layout because it's turned out pretty as a picture, and I really think those butterflies look like they're just about to take off on their glittery wings. Thank you for watching.